Happy Advent. Thank you. We are called to stay awake. We are called to watch. We are called to be alert. And yet there's this tendency within us to believe that somehow and in some way we don't need to. I don't need to stay awake. I don't need to be alert. I don't need to watch. Someone else will take care of that. I don't need to stay awake. I don't need to be alert. I don't need to watch. It's not really my responsibility. In 1964, there was a horrific murder, and there were countless bystanders who knew that the individual was being murdered, and they did nothing. Sociologists and psychologists were bewildered that so many people could know that an innocent victim was being killed and do nothing. They began to study the situation, and psychologists now refer to what is known as the bystander effect. The bystander effect is a psychological theory that states that individuals' likelihood of helping decreases as the number of bystanders increases. Once again, the bystander effect is a psychological theory that states that individuals' likelihood of helping decreases as the number of bystanders increases in an emergency situation. Someone is 70 to 90% likely to help someone in need if they are the only person around. If you add one more person to the situation, so there's now two bystanders, it drops to 10 to 15% likely to help the individual in need. A drop in 80%. So let's just use some scenarios here. Say that tonight, you're at your home, you've lit your Advent wreath, you're praying your rosary, and there's a knock on the door, and you go to the door, and there's an individual, and they're begging for food. They have no food. They tell you they're hungry. They even tell you that they have children that are in need. What would you do? What is the likelihood that you would go into your house, you would grab a food which you have a surplus of, and give them food? Most likely, 90% of you would help that person out. Now let's say that you're getting off at an exit. And at that exit is someone with a sign that says, "Need food. I'm a U.S. veteran." What's the likelihood that you're going to help that person? About 10 to 15%. Let's say today that you're driving home from Holy Mass. You're driving very safely. You aren't texting. You're focusing on the road. And as you turn onto one of the country roads, there is a car in front of you. The car as well seems to be driving safely. But then all of a sudden it swerves off to the right into a ditch. What most likely are you going to do? You're going to stop your car. You're going to get out. You're going to climb down into the ditch, and you're going to see if you can help the person. But what if you're driving on I-74? What if you see a young lady who's with a broken down car? Will you stop? Will you go up to the next exit, turn around, come across the median if need be to help this individual who clearly is in distress. The study says that only 10% of you would do that. And yet we as Christians are called to stay awake, to be alert, to watch, to wait. Last weekend's gospel was pretty clear, my dear people, that we either do acts of charity and mercy and kindness, we feed the hungry, we give drink to the thirsty, we clothe the naked, we take care of the sick or the ill, we visit the imprisoned, or we go to hell. And the reality is that there's this thought in our mind, well, someone else will take care of that. Someone else will do that. I mean, I'm not really responsible for that. And this is not just when it comes to the corporal works of mercy. This is true for our whole entire livelihood. And in fact, it's crucial when it comes to our understanding of how we live our spiritual lives. Someone sent me a video a few years back, and I call it Burgers and Bullies. That's not the actual name of the video, but it's very clear in my head. Burger King actually did a sociological study. They hired actors, so please remember these are actors. They hired teenage boys who are actors, and for an entire day, they sit inside of a Burger King and bully one of the actors. So the kid being bullied is an actor, so he's not really being bullied. The three other boys that are at the same table as him are also actors. And they bully the kid the entire day, physically, emotionally, and verbally. They pour water on top of his sandwiches, they push him off his chair, they call him names. This is a Burger King that is very, very busy. It's prior to the pandemic, so people are eating inside. No one's wearing face masks, as I recall in the video. 10% of the people who enter into that Burger King address the other boys who are clearly bullying this one boy. 10%. But this study doesn't stop there. They decided not just to bully the boy, but to also bully the Whoppers. So the cooks on the line, as they would finish making a Whopper, they would then take their fist and they would punch the Whopper. Then they would fold it up in the nice paper and they would hand it to whoever purchased the Whopper. 85% of those who received a bullied Whopper came and complained about their food. What are we more likely to do? Care about the appearance of our food than we do about how the neighbor next door to us is being treated. Because a restaurant is full and there's other people who are responsible. Why isn't the owner or the manager coming out and dealing with these boys? Why is the person in the booth across from me not correcting them? Where are their parents? We always look for someone else to be responsible. And my dear brothers and sisters, the question is, who is responsible for your faith? It's not your parents' responsibility. It's not your wife's responsibility. It's not your husband's responsibility. In fact, the responsibility in married life is that you get your spouse to heaven. Yes, they're supposed to try to get you to heaven, but the responsibility is on you. And we can't shift the responsibility constantly. People are always waiting for someone else to do something. But what if that someone is you? People in their spiritual life often will make lots of excuses. Well, you know, if we had a better pope, I'd probably be a saint. If the cardinals weren't all corrupt, I would be a saint. If our pastor wasn't so long-winded and gave really long homilies, I would probably be a saint. If our church buildings were more beautiful, I'd be a saint. If the music was better, I would be a saint. If the volunteers at our church were more loving, I would be a saint. We constantly look towards others, and we're always waiting on someone else. But my dear brothers and sisters, what if that someone is you? We are called to be alert, to stay awake, and we are called to watch, my dear brothers and sisters. We live right now in an era and at a time where there is crisis all around us. If you look at the actual bystander effect and the data is all circled around crisis situations and emergency situations. And in fact, if you want to go online today, you can type in bystander effect and then type in George Floyd. Because psychologists and sociologists studied the George Floyd event from this past May, and it's all over the place. Why did the other police officers not act like they should have? The bystander effect. Why is it that we have countless angles of video footage of people standing there with their phones while a man is being killed? Because of the bystander effect. I actually think it's very interesting. I didn't do the research on this. But so the bystander effect was a sociologist study that came out in 1964. I think it'd be phenomenal to re-look at the data because it's actually probably alarmingly worse now than it was then because of phones and because of media and because of the way that people have been trained. When people see an emergency situation, what's their first instinct now? Not to help someone, but to take a picture of it, to video it, because that will get them the endorphin rush of having likes and subscriptions and more people giving them attention by someone else's demise. Well, I don't know if you've caught on or realized recently, people, but our world is in crisis. The church is in crisis. Family is in crisis. Marriage is in crisis. We live daily in an emergency situation. And whose responsibility is it to do something? It's yours. It's mine. And we can't pass the buck. And thus, we need to constantly be awake, be alert, and do something. We can't wait. God is inviting us at every moment of our lives to be awake, to be alert, and not to shift responsibility, and not to wait for someone else, but to realize that we are that someone, particularly when it comes to our spiritual life. We have to own up, and we can't wait. And we need to take responsibility and realize that God is calling us at every moment to act. Now, if we follow the bystander effect and we apply it to the church, what happens to a growing parish? Well, it would clearly say that the more people that you have in their parish, the more likely that you have disengaged parishioners. The larger your congregation, the larger your membership, the more likelihood that everyone will shift responsibility. So what happens? Father says, well, we need volunteers for this. Someone else will do that. There's a funeral, we need a funeral meal. Someone else will make the casserole. We need people to assist with Christmas compassion. Someone else will buy those gifts. We need people to help out with youth ministry. Someone else will volunteer. We need people to provide music ministry at Mass. That's for those music people. I don't need to do that. I say this to our young men. We need vocations to the priesthood. Someone else will do that. I don't need to think about being a priest. Christ declares very clearly today that we are called to watch, to be awake, and to be alert. What is the motto of All Saints Parish? We are, what is it? We are one, right? So I want to reflect on that with just for a second. We're a parish of 1,000 families. 1,000 households. And we say that we are one, and we are because we are 4 campuses or 5 campuses with our online campus. We're 5 campuses, and yet we believe that we are one parish community, which we are. And yet I want to challenge us also to see ourselves as being one, individually. No matter what situation you are in, my brothers and sisters, you are the one. You are the one that needs to respond. You are the one that needs to act. You are the one who needs to be charitable. You are the one who needs to volunteer. You are the one who needs to be engaged. You are the one who needs to show up for adoration of the Blessed Sacrament. You are the one that God is calling to confession. You are the one that God is calling to daily Mass. You are the one that God is calling to be a saint. You are the one, and we cannot wait for someone else to do it. Not only for the good of our parish, but for the good of your own soul. At some point in our lives, we need to assume responsibility for our own salvation and not wait for someone else, but to realize that someone is us. Let's pray for that grace today, for true conviction and for true conversion in our lives and our hearts, that we may stay awake and be alert and allow God's grace to transform us. May these Advent days convert us and change us and help us to realize that we are one.